Hey there guys, what is going on? We're trying something a little bit different today. We are back at you with another best class setters video in Modern Warfare, but of course this is a little bit different. I've had loads of people in my comment section asking me which is better out of the Akimbo M19s or the Akimbo X16s. I mean, there's of course other weapons that you could choose in the pistol slot, but these are the two best and most common sort of requests that I do receive, which is the better out of the M19 or the X16. And we're of course here to answer that for you guys today. Just before we do get into answering that question here, this is going to be a little bit of a different style video, as I probably said already. We're going to go into some facts, numbers and stuff like that, unlike we normally do, just go basically on how it feels, how it plays and stuff like that. So make sure you do hit that subscribe button with those notifications turned on if you have not already done so, so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming videos. Anyway, let's just jump straight into it here because we have a load of numbers to get through. Alrighty, so let's start off with the fire rates here. This is of course a very important statistic that you would want to consider, and there's actually some interesting things that do come up when you do change some attachments and perks and stuff like that around. But for the base fire rates, we're looking at a 295 fire rate on the X16, which is fairly standard. I mean, my way of calculating this might be a little bit inaccurate, so of course there's sort of a rough estimate, but if we use sort of those same numbers to calculate all of the other numbers, well, they're all relative to each other, so it's not too big of a deal. In terms of the base fire rate of the M19, we are looking at 307 rounds per minute, which is again a rough average. Then when you look at the lightweight trigger, which is a very powerful attachment, the fire rates go up a fair chunk actually. With the M19, it does go up to 428 rounds per minute, again, rough average. And for the X16, it of course go up to 391, which is a massive improvement over the stock and basically lets us fire more bullets. And for a very powerful close range class setup that we are going for in these particular pistols, of course the lightweight trigger is an option that we do really want here. Now, of course, we are talking about the Akimbo perk, so the base fire rates do actually play a part here, but there's actually something interesting going on when you compare these two numbers together. When you do throw on the Akimbo perk, there appears to be some kind of like fire rate cap. It just simply won't let you fire any faster, and as a result, all of the fire rates for the Akimbo pistols in this sort of little test that we've done here are actually lower than their standard counterparts, especially with the lightweight triggers. There's a noticeable lack of fire rate here. So, of course, for our Akimbo M19 fire rate, we are looking at, of course, 304 rounds per minute, which is very, very similar to the stock rate. That's actually the closest number that we do get to the standard fire rate in this little list here. The Akimbo X16 does have a fire rate of 286-ish, which at a standard of 295 is, of course, another little bit of a drop here. In terms of the Akimbo M19 with the lightweight trigger, the fire rate is, of course, 404 rounds, which, again, that's a little bit less than the lightweight trigger on the M19 of 428. And lastly, the Akimbo X16 with the lightweight trigger is 366, which again is about a 30 round per minute difference. So that's actually fairly significant, and another interesting fact that you should consider, that the Akimbo, of course, does reduce the fire rate slightly, but of course you do have two pistols to fire, so that's not too significant of a statistic. Moving, of course, onto the damage numbers here. For the M19, we are looking at a 3 to 4 shot kill. This can extend a little bit further depending on where you do actually shoot people, but typically at those sort of medium distances, about 20-ish meters or so, you're going to get a 3 to 4 shot kill, assuming that your hip fire accuracy doesn't bloom out and you can actually hit those shots. And with the Akimbo X16s, it actually shares very, very similar damage numbers, and you're still going to get a 3 to 4 shot kill at exactly the same distances as you would get with the M19. So splitting these two is not actually possible with these numbers here. They're very, very similar to each other. If not, they might actually be the same here. So you are going to get a 3 to 4 shot kill. And with your two Akimbo pistols, of course, you can get those shots off very, very quickly. When we are splitting hairs with these two particular pistol options, we do have to look at pretty much everything. The reload speed does come into a factor here. And this is an upside of the X16 on the standard side. At a reload speed of about 1.68 seconds, when you do compare that to the M19, which has a reload speed of 2.14 seconds. But for some reason, whatever magical reason, and this could be down to my timing method or whatever, but when you do throw on the Akimbo perk, the reload speed for both of these pistols is exactly the same at about 2.6 seconds. There's nothing you can do to make that faster. You can't add sleight of hand or anything like that, because when you do add sleight of hand, you lose the Akimbo perk, so we can't have that at all. So you're stuck with a reload speed of about 2.6 seconds. Of course, this does change when you do have an empty magazine versus when it's half full or whatever, but that's a fairly rough sort of estimate of a reload time. So we can't really split them on that vote there. If you are keeping score at home, I believe the M19 is up 1 in the scoring, of course, with the fire rate lead, the damage being the same, and the reload speed with the Akimbo variety being exactly the same. So the Akimbo M19 is up 1 at the moment. But when we look at the magazine size, again, the M19 does have an advantage over the X16, a base magazine size of 17 versus the X16's 13. And then you, of course, add the extra ammunition, like you want more bullets to fire in the extension of the magazines. And then the M19 does have you covered with a maximum magazine of 32, and I believe it's 27-ish for the X16. I really can't remember that number off the top of my head. I should do better in these videos, but you know how it goes. So again, strike one up for the M19. Now, the hipfire spread, it is very, very difficult to tell a difference between these. I'm sure there is actually a difference between these two options, and like, it's probably very, very small, but I couldn't actually manage to see too much of a difference when I did compare them side by side. I think attachments that you put on them do make a difference as well, so depending on the attachments that you choose, like monolithic suppressors and bigger barrels and stuff like that, I think they do have a little bit of an effect on the hipfire spread, but I don't think it's actually too significant, and they're both fairly similar in terms of sort of hipfire spread. And so again, we can't really split them on the hipfire spread statistic. And the last statistic that we are taking a look at here today is, of course, the recoil spread. The Akimbo M19, interestingly enough, does have quite a little bit of recoil. It does increase vertically, and you can see it in this little picture that we've got here. It does sort of shoot up, and you do have to pull down your left stick or your mouse to sort of maintain that control. Whereas with the Akimbo X16, it's actually a lot easier, and the recoil from this particular weapon is actually a little bit better than the M19. So of course, this does go in the X16's favor, and chalk another one up for the X16, because that recoil is a little bit tighter. It can be a little bit easier for us to hit our shots here, but that recoil with the M19 is a little bit more. It's not too significant, but it is enough to sort of score a point for the X16. So again, if you are keeping score at home, if you don't count the draws as points, we have a victor in the M19 of 2-1 in terms of that magazine size overall. And then we look at the fire rate as well. The damage numbers are very, very similar. The reload speed's basically exactly the same. The hip fire, you can't really tell. Only the recoil spread does go in favor of the Akimbo X16, meaning our winner here today is, of course, the Akimbo M19. I had already figured that out without looking at these statistics. I sort of knew that there was something better about the M19 over the X16, and that's why I was including in a lot of my videos. And if we are looking at in terms of a class that is ideal for the M19 in terms of an Akimbo variety, this is what I would go with here. In terms of a best class setup for something like the Akimbo M19, you typically want to go with the largest barrel option, or at least the second largest barrel option. In terms of like hipfire spread, I've seen people in my comment section mention that these do affect the actual hipfire spread, but from what I've seen, it's so minimal that it really doesn't make too much of a difference. Plus, when you are moving around, sprinting, sliding, doing all those good things that you would normally do in a Call of Duty game, your hipfire spread gets very inconsistent anyway, so any sort of barrel adjustment that is made to the hipfire spread is kind of irrelevant at that stage. Then of course you want that 5mm laser just to increase that hipfire accuracy and sprint to fire speed. That lightweight trigger, of course, as we've already spoken about, for that maximum fire rate. The 32 round mags to give us the maximum amount of bullets to fire, and of course the Akimbo perk. Now, of course, I already mentioned previously throughout all this video and presented you with lots of facts and stats and stuff like that to present to you that the Akimbo M19 is, of course, the best option in terms of a secondary style weapon. If you aren't running overkill and stuff like that, basically you just want to pull out a very powerful close range option in the pistol class, this just doesn't work for you. It basically just blasts people away with a very high fire rate, better than you would probably expect range. And you've just got loads of bullets to fire, plus sometimes this can even help depending on what actually your primary weapon is. This can even give you extra bullets to fire in that regard. So say you're using something like an MP5, etc. Basically this does help you out in that regard, whereas something like an X16, it's more limited in terms of your weapon options. You can still make that work with sort of extra ammo, but the weapons you have to play with in that regard are a little bit different. So hopefully we have answered today the question of which is the better Akimbo pistol option out of the X16 or the Akimbo M19. And of course, as we've mentioned already, that is of course the Akimbo M19. You just get everything that you would ever want, just a very powerful close range option with this particular pistol, and that's hopefully that case solved. Anyway guys, thank you very much for watching this one. If you did like this more in-depth style of video, make sure you do let me know by leaving a like, and do subscribe if you are new around here, of course. Normally we don't come at you with all these stats, statistics, numbers and stuff like that. We more go on base feel and just what I feel about the game, what I know in terms of numbers and stuff like that. And we usually do a pretty good job. But make sure you let me know how you feel about this style of video. Thank you very much for watching, as I probably said a billion times already, and I appreciate it of course, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!